Hi, this is Thomas. I'm with Nokia. I've been in telecom industry for about 30 plus years and been doing various things. So today we're going to talk about IoT. I call it xSIM, is eSIM and iSIM, basically. So combination of that. And what are the challenges and scalabilities that we see from our angle, let's say, put it that way. So we talk about growth all morning today. So we got this information from Counterpoint as well. So you see the growth up there. Okay, so basically this is today, and people seen this already. 2025, we see about 2/3 is eSIM or iSIM, and only about 1/3 with SIM. But with the current rate, we're not quite sure this will meet the number, but that's roughly what's going on. And we also see with the iSIM, there will be disruption in the market. So basically what you see here is that SOC, like Qualcomm and those guys are going to come into the picture next with iSIM. So there will be a little bit of change going on with that. The other one's the cost. We also heard it's going to be cheaper than eSIM when iSIM comes out. And the growth. And this is my assumption. The people who haven't adopted eSIM today with the device vendors, they might directly go to iSIM. And there's module makers already thinking about that right now. So we see that's going to happen. And lastly, onboarding. And we talked about onboarding this morning as well. How do we do that quickly? And especially some of the use cases we saw with private network, people want this instantly. So from IoT perspective, and this is what we see from the growth, because Nokia also have device management portfolio within our team. And we see about 70% growth. And this will cover various industries. And one thing they also ask for is zero-touch onboarding with IoT devices. And how do we get there? So this is a rough idea where we're going. So this is a high-level breakdown. This is not eSIM. This is our cellular devices today. And we see potential in two major areas. One is the smart meters in that area, utility companies and all that, and also the smart devices for smart cities. The other one is the trackers, or the tracking. And those are going to grow pretty fast. And we've seen that from IoT perspective. And as they're adapting to eSIM or iSIM, we assume this number will keep growing. And the rest of them just have a smaller percentage, but we'll see. Because of the industry is pretty much fragmented, right? Like IoT devices with eSIM, and that will continue too. So this is what we also see in 5G. And there will be different use cases coming in due to the various slicing and also the 5G requirements, the latency, the reliability. So we're going to see a lot of use cases coming in that are going to bring in more eSIM and iSIM devices, right? So for example, the first one, you need high throughput video, right? Surveillance. Then the second one, you see high reliability. Maybe low throughput. You're just gathering data from smart devices. And the next one is basically the factory scenario. You see low latency, somewhat, but high reliability because you need to control the machines. So then there's use cases right between the two, and you see that coming in as well. And some use case, we'll share a couple use cases that we see. This one is a use case we're running into with utility. It's a combination of CSPs and enterprises. We've seen this, people are looking for eSIM devices in the meters on the street, in the houses. They also want meters, monitoring capability for their infrastructure in the utility companies or the grids. And funny thing is, we also see something else. They also want to, number one, save time and money to managing those devices. That's number one. They also want the security spin on that too. and how to make sure they're there so they don't move, right? That because of some devices might be stolen. So they're looking for how do we use eSIM devices to have better control of those devices and understand where they are, and maybe changing the plans remotely. So that's what we see. And that's what we see. The profiles here is not subscription profiles, not the subscriptions. It's basically you see different needs by residential devices, maybe government devices and public. So you have different devices deploying different area that might have different needs for the service itself. The next one, we also see automotives, and most of you know that already. What we see is they want private network, maybe served by a CSP. That could be the first case in the factory itself. So they have different needs in the factory. They might have different bundle services. They might want to do testing. They might want to do downloading data, collecting data before everything goes out. So one of the key things, how do we test this eSIM solution in the factory environment? Then after that, how do you take this out to the dealers, right? Once you go out to the dealer, they want all the capabilities for demo the car. That's what they want. So this might be going in from a private network to a public network, or from a private network in transit to a private network again. Then from the retailers, what's going to happen is you're going to sell the car to a user yourself, right? Like the owner. Then there'll be the consumer solution that's required for that. But there's another scenario. What happens if your car needs to get service? You have to go back to the factory or go back to the dealership. And how do they manage the subscription? They can better test their system. As a driver, I'm not going to give you my subscription to do the consumer device testing if they ever broke. So there's another switching of the subscription profile that's necessary. So the use case actually grows from there on what are the things had to be done. And the retailers on this case can also be a car rental company. So how do they deal with that from subscription management perspective? Yeah, this is another interesting one. It's a seaport that's out in different countries, and they want to deploy private network. And they're gonna have multiple applications in there. They're gonna have devices coming in from public network going in. They have shipping coming in, the crates. Then you might have trackers on those from one country to another country. So you're gonna have a lot of different IoT devices in this mix. And you have to deal with private and public network again, right? And the key things here, the people who's running this type of environment, they don't know anything about the network. So they need help, right? So one, I also use this as an example. Let's say you deploy private network in a mine. The people who's working in the mine, they have no idea what eSIM is. They have no idea how to onboard a device. All they want to do is just turn something on and it works, right? This almost like that same environment. And the lastly I mentioned on here is the switching, right? We see that constantly happening on all the use cases. And in Nokia, I have a private network team that does all this. So I've been talking to them to see how we can enable this. It's an interesting use case. So this is what we see as Roadblocks to enable massive IoT and also scalability and connectivity. So people are looking for dynamic subscription management, something more in real time. That's what people are looking for. There's low automation. With this entire end-to-end process, what we found out is the integration automation is pretty minimal. There's a lot of manual steps from end to end, even provisioning the back-end systems in the carrier space. That seems to be the case. The other one's testing. People might be testing the device, the IoT device, but with eSIM devices, you probably want to test eSIM and IoT device itself together. So one of the use case is that before you can just plug in your network card, your SIM into the device and test it. Now you cannot do that anymore. You have to download a subscription to do this type of testing. And can the device vendors do this testing today? So those are questions I've been hearing from the customers I've been talking to. And the other one's slow time to market. What happened is with some of the deployments with private network and maybe a slice, there's a cycle trying to get the system up and running. People are looking for like less than 4 hours, for example, trying to get the network up and running. But with the current process, what's happening is you have to create a profile, you have to test it, you have to order them. That takes weeks, right? So it's not meeting the needs. And we're hearing that constantly from our customer base. The last one's changing the market demand and also the evolution of the standards. And that's helping, but at the same time, the customer's looking for a solution that's more future-proof. So they're looking for something that will evolve faster with the solution, how to enable their use cases. So on the expectation part, those are wish lists from the customers. So the first one is standards, the evolution. The second one is zero touch. How do you do zero touch and automate? The next one is to streamline the entire operations and the supply chain. How do we do that? The fourth item is the scalability, cloud ready. And also, when I say scalability, it also means that how do you scale in, scale out? For one example, let's say on the Christmas day, all of a sudden you have twice as much traffic. You don't have the time to basically allocate that much resources ahead of time and buy that. So you want to scale out and scale in according to the need. And there's a few more features that's required in that space. You probably have to look into tenancy with all the private network MVNOs, the CSPs are serving. And also some business logic, how things should work in different domains, in different customer base. The last one is how do we simplify E2E testing? Can this be automated? And what kind of tests should be interlinked between the SIMs and also the device itself? And also data collection for IoT. What's the optimum scenario for that? So if you want to do anything, this is a suggestion. One is digitizing the subscription creation part, trying to shorten that period somehow, and provide a pretty simple closed loop lifecycle management for subscriptions and how to automate that. The other one is interoperability. How to automate the interoperability testing automatically. So you get a SIM, you deploy it, you can just put on the network and test itself and give you all the results. How do we do that? The last one is automation. Automation in such a way that you do validation. So one of the things we hear is this system got provisioned, but that system didn't get provisioned correctly. So when you're trying to deploy your devices, you're trying to roll this out, all of a sudden you get errors coming back because of manual step. How do you use APIs to pre-validate things before you even deploy? You even put this thing on the network, right? And every single IoT device might have a different need. So how do we do auto validation through different APIs and through different integration in the backend system, right? There's quite a few backend systems, right? The IT, the HLRs, maybe even the RSP system. And how do we talk to each other and how do we get this done ahead of time? You want to preempt the problem first. So I think most people knows about this. This is what's coming up. And we're pretty excited to see where this is going to evolve because we see this is going to help with quite a few use cases and tie things together moving forward. Or the first one I think will enable private network pretty much was that new component. These that guy right here, that guy right there, the IoT remote manager, right? Because as you might know, most private network might not have SMS inside the private network. So that hopefully that will solve that problem. And the other thing is merging of consumer M2M, and that will help reducing some costs for the CSPs, I think, because now you're gonna have one platform can do both. Then once we can do scale in, scale out, it's really gonna help the CSPs. The second one is gonna enable more applications. So how do you do secure application management? So basically you provide an interface between the SIM itself, the applets, and the application. Right now, you're gonna open up more doors for enterprises. So we see more use cases coming out from there. And even the CSPs can provide this as a service to their enterprise customers. The last one is interesting too, because with iSIM, how do you provision the OS? For IoT devices, it might be out there for 15 years, right? So if there's any changes, how do you provision? It's almost like you provision a firmware on your IoT device. You have to go to that route now, right? So somebody had to deliver the SIM OS updates, and you had to push out to those devices either automatically. So you really have to think about how do you handle eSIMs or iSIMs from IoT provisioning perspective, the devices, and the volume, right? You might have campaigns, or you might have to provision like 40,000 devices at a time. And those are the use cases that you need to deal with now. Yeah, so to basically conclude, this is roughly the life cycle of eSIM device management for the eSIMs. So the first part up here, oops. Okay, so from what we understand, this part takes a long time. It doesn't quite meet the enterprise need when they want to onboard a new service. The carriers that we've been talking to, they want to solve that problem first to shorten the time. The second one is testing and provisioning. So there could be provisioning with device management working together. There could be auto provisioning with HLRs. There could be auto provisioning with the IT environment. There also could be provisioning with billing systems, right? So everything you need to do as onboarding a new device, you want to automate the whole process if you can, right? The subscription management, inventory management, that's what everybody does with remote SIM provisioning systems. The purchasing of the plan, you want to make that as easy as possible for IoT devices. So you might want to just go to a website, click on it, you get your service. Or you say, I got 2,000 devices, and here's the IDs, and just do that through a website. That those could be done. The installation is going to be the same, right? The downloading. This is where you need that campaign, do something like overnight for 2 hours for 20,000 devices for a whole neighborhood, maybe. The activation just follows that. The diagnostic and troubleshooting. I heard quite a few feedback from the customer that, how do I troubleshoot? What kind of information do I need to see? How do I correlate the information? How do I correlate the eSIM onboarding error messages with the other systems? And that's a missing link right now. The lifecycle management is basically you have to go back and order more profiles in this case, right? How fast can that be? And lastly, the secure application management. So that will bring more use cases on here. So you're gonna need more way of dealing with those use cases. You might need new capabilities moving forward. So I think that's the highlight. It's just a different angle from a network equipment company's perspective. So hopefully this helps. So questions?
Quick. You've still got plenty of time left. So questions in the room? Let me check on the iPad to see if there's anything that's come in remotely as well. Nothing. I think everyone must be having a long lunch online. Okay, one from myself. It says you said you were working closely with your the Nokia dedicated networks, private networks group. Yeah. At what point do you expect to see sort of eSIM or iSIM appearing in private networks for different sectors?
They're actually coming. There's an enterprise customer actually asking us to support them and see what can we do to them. And so there's the smaller private networks. So I tend to call private network in two different flavors. One is private network. So they basically stay inside the private network. And the other one is private network provided by CSPs, right? So there's two different use cases. And network slice could be basically a private network for enterprise. So I do see enterprises coming in asking for those. Last year, let's say, I spoke to a couple utility companies already. They're looking for ways to adopt this new technology. And smart meters are already doing that through our device management team. And they're coming back to me and asking, how can we help them? So we do see that trend actually started.
And is there anything in particular about network slicing and sort of 3GPP release 16 and beyond in terms of how that maps onto SIM cards or eSIM or iSIM?
We're trying to figure this out ourselves. We have a 5G lab in Nokia, and we're working with that team trying to see what would the subscription profile might look like for a slice.
Because some devices might have multiple slices. I know that they're talking about, so if you've got a car, you might have one slice for the engine management or battery management system and one for real-time safety alerts and one for infotainment, and so on, and potentially with different qualities of service. I don't know if any of that is instantiated on the SIM or eSIM.
That could, right? So you might have different profiles associated to different slice parameters, like what I showed you before with the 5G, due to the need for reliability or the speed or the volume, right? So those parameters had to be assigned to a slice, and that slice will be attached to a eSIM in the car. So you might have one or two eSIMs in there, and depends on the usage, the information in the profile might be different.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Thomas, for the presentation. What was not clear for me, is it something you have already developed or you're going to develop and release? And what is the positioning of the SMTP Plus? Is it something which is then integrated and coming from Nokia? Or is it then open to interconnect with any SMTP Plus in the case it's already established in a private network context?
There's a couple of needs from private network. Let me put it this way. In private network, there's one need is that they want to deliver with the private network, inside the private network. So I'll give you a quick example. If you want to deliver the solution on a battleship, you cannot use something in the public to provide the DP plus or DP functionality. You have to be inside the battleship, right? For defense reasons, for government reasons, right? That use case, I don't think anybody can support it yet, because most solutions today are deployed in a secure data center, right? So I had that interesting conversation with a guy in DoD department in the big 5G event just a couple weeks back. So that's their constraint. They cannot use anything outside, right? So that's an interesting use case. And
just for information, we have already developed SMTP Plus on a laptop for defense use cases. So
yes. So you're asking Nokia already built something, or what are you trying to ask?
Because you said this is a use case which is not yet addressed for sure for closed environments. If you want to have an SMTP Plus functionality on a laptop or in an isolated environment like a battleship, you said this is something which is feasible and which is already done. So it's
not already done. It's people are, I guess, looking for a solution for that. Yeah. There's constraints, right? What we're facing today, right? I was even talking to Gloria today about some of the use cases that I've been hearing. Yeah, that one I haven't touched, but that is another use case. So, any more questions?
I was going to say, it sounds like the questioner from a company which is also a defense contractor might have some interesting information on that, but we'll park that for a discussion over a drink.
Okay.
One other question which occurs to me with the scenario like a port or a mine. What happens when if someone comes onto that site with, let's say, a truck, but that truck has an eSIM controlled by the truck company or the truck OEM,
Mm-hmm.
and so you might have a sort of trucking company with a sort of Thales eSIM system, and they come onto a port which has a Nokia eSIM system. What's the level of interoperability, and what are the sort of possibilities and pitfalls there?
If the truck comes in, I assume you'll stay on the public network, right? So that you don't have the need to jump into private network at that point, right? But however you're shipping to the mine in the back, those have to go into the private network, and those have to be either provisioned ahead of time, or you turn on the system and it automatically latches onto the private network. That's what we are thinking.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Any other questions from the audience?
Thanks for the talk. As regards the evolution of eSIM and iSIM, are they following the same standards? Will an iSIM essentially be an integrated eSIM, or are we going to end up with two SIMs from an OS perspective?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
So the eSIM and the iSIM, are they evolving along the same specifications, or are we going to end up with an iSIM solution and an eSIM solution?
I assume the device eventually will become pretty much either eSIM based or iSIM based, right? Depends on the device vendor. Like today with iPhone, you have eSIM and regular SIM in there, right? So I see that change, but sometimes I also see the module makers might adopt iSIM first, right? Once they do that, you see those devices who are using the modules will adopt the iSIMs, or the consumer devices that are more expensive, or expensive IoT device will adopt iSIM first. That's at least what we're thinking.
Unless anyone else has any last minute questions, I think that is probably all for now. Thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you.